Most people are told that losing weight is a simple matter of eating less and moving more, but that's not true. Real lasting weight loss begins much deeper, at the level of your metabolism, and at the root of your metabolism lies your gut. Inside your digestive tract lives a vast community of bacteria, viruses, and fungi, the gut microbiome, and this ecosystem acts as your body's metabolic control center. These microbes influence how efficiently you burn fat, how well you balance blood sugar, and even how hungry or satisfied you feel after eating. When the gut is healthy and diverse, the body operates like a finely tuned machine. Nutrients are absorbed properly, inflammation stays low, and your hormones, especially insulin, leptin, and cortisol, communicate clearly to regulate weight. But when the microbiome is damaged, everything changes. Inflammation rises, cravings intensify, and your metabolism slows down no matter how carefully you count calories. This is why many people struggle with stubborn weight gain even on a healthy diet, because the real issue isn't calories, it's microbial imbalance. Our modern processed diet, filled with refined sugars, industrial oils, and chemicals, has devastated microbial diversity. Compare this to ancestral diets rich in fiber, fermented foods, and natural plant compounds, which fed beneficial bacteria and allowed the body to burn fat effortlessly. We've replaced nourishment with convenience, and in doing so, disrupted the very foundation of our metabolism. When you repair your gut microbiome, the transformation goes far beyond the scale. You begin to unlock consistent energy, stable mood, and sharper mental focus. The body shifts from storing fat to burning it naturally, and weight loss becomes a byproduct of healing rather than restriction. The gut and metabolism are intimately connected through a constant stream of biochemical communication. Every meal you eat doesn't just feed you. It feeds trillions of microbes that live within you. These microbes don't passively sit in the gut. They produce signaling molecules, metabolites, and hormones that influence how your body handles food, stores energy, and manages inflammation. Essentially, your microbiome acts like a metabolic switchboard, sending instructions to your cells about whether to burn energy efficiently or hold on to it as fat. A diverse and balanced microbiome helps regulate blood sugar and maintain insulin sensitivity, two critical components of healthy metabolism. When beneficial bacteria thrive, they produce short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs such as butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These SCFAs play a direct role in reducing inflammation, improving insulin signaling, and strengthening the gut lining. A strong gut lining prevents toxins from leaking into the bloodstream, which otherwise would trigger systemic inflammation and insulin resistance. In this way, a healthy microbiome ensures that the body remains metabolically flexible, able to shift between burning carbohydrates and fat for energy depending on the body's needs. Scientific research continues to reveal that certain bacterial strains have powerful metabolic effects. Akkermansia mucinifera, for instance, is known to protect the gut barrier and enhance insulin sensitivity. Higher levels of this bacterium are strongly associated with lean body mass and improved glucose metabolism. Another beneficial group, the bacteroidetes, plays an essential role in breaking down complex plant fibers into CFAs, fueling the gut lining and promoting fat burning. People with a higher ratio of bacteroidetes to firmicutes tend to have lower body fat percentages and better metabolic health overall. By contrast, when firmicutes dominate the microbiome, they become highly efficient at extracting calories from food, even from fiber and complex carbohydrates that would otherwise pass through the body. This efficiency might sound beneficial, but in reality, it leads to excess energy storage. These bacteria essentially squeeze more calories out of each bite, promoting fat accumulation. Studies in both humans and animals have shown that obese individuals tend to have a higher firmicutes to bacteroidetes ratio, underscoring the link between microbial imbalance and weight gain. The microbiome's impact goes even further. Gut bacteria interact with the vagus nerve, the direct communication highway between the gut and brain, sending messages that affect appetite, satiety, and mood. When the microbiome is balanced, it produces more of the neurotransmitters and peptides that signal fullness, such as peptide YY and GLP-1. When it's imbalanced, the gut sends mixed signals, leading to cravings for sugar and processed foods that feed the very bacteria, causing metabolic chaos. This creates a feedback loop. The more you feed harmful bacteria, the more they demand, and the more your metabolism shifts toward fat storage. All of this points to a fundamental truth. Obesity is not merely a result of overeating, a lack of willpower. It's a symptom of metabolic imbalance driven by gut dysfunction. Calorie counting can only go so far if your microbiome is working against you. When beneficial bacteria are depleted and harmful strains dominate, the body behaves as if it's in survival mode, clinging to every calorie. But when the gut is repaired and microbial diversity is restored, the opposite happens. The body becomes metabolically efficient again, naturally burning fat and balancing hunger without conscious effort. Healing the microbiome reprograms metabolism from the inside out. Instead of focusing on restriction, the goal becomes nourishment, feeding the bacteria that support your health rather than the ones that sabotage it. When Akkermansia, Bacteroidetes, and other beneficial microbes flourish, inflammation subsides, blood sugar stabilizes, and energy levels rise. The body no longer needs to store excess fuel as fat because it's using energy properly once again. Weight loss, in this context, is simply a reflection of restored metabolic harmony. This is why so many people experience profound transformations when they shift their focus from counting calories to cultivating gut health. By rebalancing the microbial ecosystem through whole, fiber-rich foods, fermented vegetables, and diverse plant nutrients, they are not just losing fat, they are correcting the root cause of metabolic dysfunction. The gut is not a bystander in metabolism, it is the command center, and when you repair it, the entire body realigns toward health, vitality, and effortless energy balance. Visceral fat is not just an extra layer of padding beneath the skin. It is a metabolically active tissue that behaves more like a toxic organ than simple energy storage, hidden deep within the abdominal cavity. Visceral fat surrounds critical organs such as the liver, pancreas, and intestines. Unlike subcutaneous fat, which lies just under the skin, visceral fat releases a continuous stream of inflammatory chemicals and hormones directly into the bloodstream, where they can wreak havoc on nearly every metabolic system in the body. This type of fat is particularly dangerous because of its location and its ability to act as an endocrine organ. It secretes cytokines such as interleukin-6 or IL-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha TNF, and C-reactive protein, CRP, all powerful pro-inflammatory molecules that interfere with insulin signaling and promote systemic inflammation. Over time, this creates a vicious metabolic storm where the body becomes less sensitive to insulin, blood sugar levels rise, and more fat accumulates in the very areas already overloaded. The more visceral fat you have, the more inflammatory messengers you produce, and the more difficult it becomes for your body to regulate energy efficiently. Research has shown that visceral fat releases free fatty acids directly into the portal vein, the blood vessel that carries nutrients and toxins straight to the liver. When this happens, the liver becomes overwhelmed, producing excess glucose and triglycerides while increasing insulin resistance. This is the biochemical foundation of metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions that includes high blood sugar, high blood pressure, and abnormal cholesterol levels. Over time, this toxic loop contributes to the development of type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and cardiovascular problems. Visceral fat doesn't just disrupt the body's internal chemistry. It also accelerates aging at the cellular level. Chronic inflammation caused by visceral fat increases oxidative stress, damages DNA, and shortens telomeres, which are the protective caps on the ends of your chromosomes. Studies have shown that people with high levels of visceral fat tend to have biological ages significantly older than their chronological ones. Their cells show signs of early degeneration, and their mitochondria, the energy factories of the cell, become less efficient. This explains why individuals with excess visceral fat often feel fatigued, experience brain fog, and struggle with persistent inflammation-related symptoms long before major diseases appear. Scientists now understand that visceral fat functions as a kind of inflammatory organ that constantly sends out distress signals. These signals don't just stay local, they travel throughout the body, influencing everything from appetite regulation to immune system activity. For instance, the inflammatory cytokines released by visceral fat can disrupt leptin and ghrelin, the hormones that control hunger and satiety. As a result, people with more visceral fat often experience stronger cravings, unstable blood sugar, and more difficulty maintaining a healthy weight, not because of lack of willpower, but because their hormonal messaging system is under constant attack. The connection between visceral fat and heart disease is particularly strong. Inflammatory cytokines from visceral fat promote plaque formation in the arteries, increase blood clotting, and damage the inner lining of blood vessels. This raises the risk of heart attack and stroke even in individuals who may appear slim but have hidden visceral fat. It's why waist circumference is now considered a more accurate predictor of metabolic risk than overall body weight. One of the most powerful insights from recent research is that you cannot lose visceral fat effectively by focusing only on calorie restriction. Because this fat is driven by inflammation, the key to reducing it lies in calming the internal fire that sustains it. Anti-inflammatory dietary changes, such as increasing omega-3 fats, eating fermented and fiber-rich foods, reducing processed sugars and refined oils, directly target the root cause. When inflammation decreases, the hormonal and metabolic environment shifts, allowing the body to access and burn visceral fat for energy. Healing the gut is central to this process. An imbalanced microbiome feeds inflammation, while a healthy one suppresses it. Beneficial gut bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids that signal the liver and fat cells to reduce inflammatory output and improve insulin sensitivity. As these signals stabilize, the body begins to release stored visceral fat naturally, without the stress-driven rebound that comes from crash dieting. Visceral fat is not a passive byproduct of poor diet. It is an active participant in the metabolic dysfunction that leads to chronic disease. The solution is not to punish the body with deprivation, but to restore communication between the gut, the immune system, and metabolism. When inflammation is silenced, the toxic messages from visceral fat subside, the body regains balance, and true, sustainable fat loss begins from the inside out. Inflammation sits at the crossroads of nearly every chronic metabolic issue, and its effects on the body's hormonal balance are profound. When inflammation becomes chronic, it sends constant distress signals throughout the body, disrupting the delicate feedback systems that regulate hormones like insulin and cortisol. These two hormones are crucial for maintaining stable energy and healthy body composition, yet under inflammatory stress, they become the very drivers of fat storage and metabolic slowdown. When inflammation rises, the body perceives it as a threat, whether from infection, injury, toxins, or even emotional stress. In response, the adrenal glands release cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Cortisol's job is to mobilize energy by increasing blood sugar and freeing fatty acids so the body can respond to perceived danger. However, when cortisol remains elevated for too long, as it does in chronic stress or inflammation, this adaptive response backfires. Instead of using energy efficiently, the body begins to preserve it, signaling fat cells to store more energy for later use. This is one of the reasons why chronic stress is so tightly linked to abdominal fat accumulation. Inflammation also interferes directly with insulin, the hormone responsible for moving glucose into cells for energy. Persistent inflammatory signals make the cells less responsive to insulin, forcing the pancreas to release more of it. This state, insulin resistance, traps the body in a fat storage mode. High insulin levels block the release of fat from adipose tissue, making it nearly impossible to burn stored fat for energy. Even when calorie intake is reduced, the body clings to its reserves because hormonally it believes energy scarcity is part of the ongoing stress threat. The combination of high cortisol and high insulin creates a metabolic double bind. Cortisol raises blood sugar and insulin tries to lower it, but when the system is inflamed, neither works effectively. The result is fluctuating blood sugar, frequent hunger, and cravings for quick energy sources like refined carbohydrates and sweets. Each spike in blood sugar triggers another surge in insulin, which suppresses fat burning even further and perpetuates fatigue and inflammation. Over time, this hormonal chaos leads to weight gain, particularly around the midsection, where cortisol-sensitive fat receptors are most concentrated. Poor sleep amplifies this entire cycle. Even a single night of disrupted sleep can elevate cortisol levels and reduce insulin sensitivity the following day. Chronic sleep deprivation makes the body act as though it's under constant attack, increasing inflammatory markers such as IL-6 and CRP. This makes it far more difficult to regulate appetite hormones like ghrelin and leptin, which control hunger and fullness. As a result, people who are sleep deprived tend to eat more, crave sugary foods, and have a harder time losing fat, not because of weak willpower, but because their hormonal landscape has shifted toward fat preservation. Refined carbohydrates and processed foods also feed this inflammatory loop. When you eat highly processed sugars and starches, they cause rapid spikes in blood glucose, forcing large insulin surges. Over time, this repeated pattern inflames blood vessels, stresses the pancreas, and raises cortisol in an effort to stabilize energy levels. The liver becomes overloaded with excess glucose, converting it into fat, much of which accumulates around the organs as visceral fat. The very act of eating these foods drives the same inflammation and hormonal imbalance that make fat burning impossible. Clinically, one of the most effective ways to restore metabolic flexibility is to focus on reducing inflammation at its root. When inflammation decreases, cortisol begins to normalize, allowing the body to exit its stress response state. Lower cortisol means more stable blood sugar, fewer cravings, and improved insulin sensitivity. As insulin levels fall, fat cells are no longer locked, and the body can begin to release stored fat for fuel. This is why many people notice that once they address inflammation through diet, stress management, and better sleep, their weight begins to shift naturally without extreme restriction. Practical strategies that calm inflammation include increasing omega-3 fatty acids from fish or flax, prioritizing restorative sleep, and avoiding refined sugars and seed oils that drive oxidative stress. Regular movement, not excessive exercise, but consistent low-intensity activity also helps lower cortisol and improve insulin signaling. Just as importantly, supporting gut health with prebiotic and fermented foods reduces systemic inflammation by strengthening the intestinal barrier and lowering the immune system's chronic activation. When inflammation is under control, the entire hormonal network recalibrates. Cortisol returns to its natural rhythm, higher in the morning to promote energy and lower at night to allow rest. Insulin levels stabilize, keeping blood sugar steady and preventing the roller coaster of energy crashes and cravings. The metabolism shifts from storing fat to burning it efficiently. The body stops reacting as though it's in crisis and starts functioning as it's designed to, using fuel smoothly, maintaining energy, and naturally returning to a healthy weight without force or deprivation. The body is designed to heal itself, but it can only do so when it receives the right raw materials. Every bite of food you eat sends a signal. It either promotes inflammation and metabolic stress, or it nourishes your cells and restores balance. Healing from within begins by shifting that signal toward calm, repair, and resilience. Food becomes medicine when it's chosen with the intention to support both the gut microbiome and the mitochondria, the tiny energy factories in every cell. When those two systems thrive, inflammation naturally subsides and the body transitions from storing fat to burning it efficiently. Anti-inflammatory nutrition works by addressing the root cause of metabolic dysfunction, chronic immune activation. Omega-3 fatty acids, found abundantly in oily fish such as salmon, sardines, and mackerel, are among the most potent anti-inflammatory nutrients available. They help balance the body's production of eicosanoids, the chemical messengers that regulate inflammation. When omega-3 levels are sufficient, they suppress pro-inflammatory cytokines and promote tissue healing. Regular intake of omega-3s has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, reduce triglycerides, and even lower levels of visceral fat by calming the inflammatory signals that sustain it. Olive oil, particularly extra virgin, provides another cornerstone of anti-inflammatory eating. Its primary compound, oleocanthal, acts much like a natural ibuprofen, inhibiting the same inflammatory pathways that drive pain and swelling. Mediterranean populations that consume olive oil daily consistently show lower rates of obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. It is not just the calories in olive oil that matter, but the message it sends to your cells, a signal of nourishment and protection rather than stress and inflammation. Turmeric and its active compound curcumin are equally powerful in this context. Curcumin inhibits NF-κB, one of the body's master switches for inflammation. This makes turmeric an essential food for reducing systemic inflammation and supporting liver detoxification. When combined with black pepper, which enhances absorption, turmeric becomes a daily tonic for metabolic health. Similarly, green tea offers catechins, particularly EGCG, that improve fat oxidation, protect mitochondria from oxidative damage, and enhance metabolic rate without overstimulation. Plant foods rich in antioxidants and phytonutrients are fundamental for healing. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, and Brussels sprouts contain sulforaphane, a compound that activates the body's natural detoxification enzymes and reduces oxidative stress. These vegetables also provide the fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. As these microbes ferment fiber, they produce short-chain fatty acids that strengthen the gut lining and send anti-inflammatory signals throughout the body. Berries, blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries are dense with anthocyanins and polyphenols that reduce oxidative damage and improve vascular health. These compounds not only protect against aging, but also modulate blood sugar and insulin, key factors in weight management. Fiber plays a uniquely critical role in anti-inflammatory nutrition. Beyond promoting healthy digestion, it regulates how quickly glucose enters the bloodstream, preventing the insulin surges that promote fat storage. Soluble fiber from foods like oats, flax seeds, and legumes also binds to cholesterol and toxins in the gut, helping remove them from the body. In doing so, it reduces the overall inflammatory burden and supports a balanced microbiome, the very ecosystem that governs how efficiently we burn fat and generate energy. In contrast, inflammatory foods send the opposite signal, one of alarm and dysfunction. Refined carbohydrates, seed oils, and processed sugars trigger rapid spikes in blood glucose, increase oxidative stress, and promote insulin resistance. Industrial seed oils such as soybean, corn, and sunflower oil are particularly damaging because of their high omega-6 content. When consumed in excess, omega-6 fats promote inflammatory eicosanoids that overpower the calming effects of omega-3. So over time, this imbalance drives metabolic inflexibility and fat accumulation, particularly around the organs. Processed sugars worsen the cycle by feeding harmful gut bacteria, increasing endotoxin release, and keeping the immune system perpetually activated. Dr. Myhill often emphasizes that true health begins at the cellular level, specifically within the mitochondria. These tiny powerhouses depend on clean, nutrient-dense fuel to function. When they are overloaded with toxins or deprived of antioxidants, their energy output declines and fatigue sets in. By nourishing the mitochondria with anti-inflammatory foods, the body regains its ability to produce energy efficiently and recover from stress. This same principle applies to the gut. Feed the right microbes with real food, and they will in turn produce the compounds your cells need to heal and thrive. When the diet centers around whole, unprocessed foods, colorful plants, quality fats, and clean proteins, inflammation quiets down, hormones rebalance, and metabolic flexibility returns. The body naturally shifts from survival mode to restoration mode. Weight loss, in this context, is not the goal, but the result of restored cellular health. The mitochondria begin to burn fuel cleanly, the gut microbiome produces healing compounds, and the immune system no longer attacks the body's own tissues. Eating becomes a way to signal safety and balance, reminding the body that it can finally let go of stored energy and return to its natural healthy rhythm. The gut is the foundation of the body's immune and metabolic systems, and nearly every aspect of inflammation begins there. When the gut microbiome is balanced and diverse, it keeps the immune system calm and the metabolic processes efficient. But when it becomes imbalanced, often due to processed foods, antibiotics, chronic stress, or lack of fiber, the gut lining weakens and inflammation becomes chronic. This breakdown in the gut barrier, often called leaky gut, allows bacterial fragments and toxins to escape into the bloodstream, where they trigger the immune system and ignite widespread inflammation. At the center of this process is a molecule called lipopolysaccharide, or LPS, a toxin found in the outer membrane of certain gut bacteria. Under normal conditions, LPS stays confined within the gut, harmlessly contained by the intestinal wall. However, when the gut lining becomes permeable, LPS leaks into circulation. The immune system identifies it as a threat and responds with an inflammatory surge, releasing cytokines and stress hormones in an attempt to neutralize it. Over time, these constant immune alarms overwhelm the system, leading to insulin resistance, hormonal imbalances, and visceral fat accumulation. This connection between gut permeability and inflammation is one of the clearest examples of how digestive health dictates whole body health. The bloodstream becomes loaded with inflammatory messengers that interfere with cellular energy production. Mitochondria slow down, blood sugar regulation falters, and the body begins to store more energy as fat, particularly in the abdominal region. This is why individuals with leaky gut often experience fatigue, bloating, brain fog, and stubborn belly fat simultaneously. It's not just a digestive issue, it's a systemic one rooted in immune overactivation. Functional medicine views inflammation not as an isolated problem, but as a communication error between the gut and the immune system. The gut houses nearly 70% of the body's immune cells. When the microbiome is healthy, these immune cells are kept in a state of tolerance, alert but not reactive. Beneficial bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which act as natural anti-inflammatory messengers. Butyrate strengthens the intestinal barrier, fuels colon cells, and suppresses excessive immune responses. When gut bacteria are depleted or imbalanced, butyrate levels drop, and the immune system becomes hypersensitive, responding to every minor stimulus with inflammation. Repairing the gut is therefore the first and most important step in calming inflammation and unlocking fat burning. One of the most effective ways to restore balance is through fermented foods, living sources of beneficial microbes. Foods like sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi, and unsweetened yogurt introduce probiotics that help repopulate the gut with friendly bacteria. These microbes compete with harmful strains, reduce endotoxin production, and help reseal the intestinal barrier. Probiotic supplementation can also play a role, particularly strains like Lactobacillus rhamnosus and Bifidobacterium lactis, which have been shown to reduce inflammation and improve body composition. Equally important is removing the irritants that damage the gut lining in the first place. Refined sugars, processed seed oils, alcohol, and artificial additives all feed harmful bacteria and promote gut permeability. Gluten and dairy proteins can also be problematic for those with sensitivities, acting as triggers that perpetuate inflammation. Replacing these foods with nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory options allows the gut lining to heal and the microbiome to regain balance. A diverse diet rich in prebiotic fibers from foods like garlic, onions, leeks, and asparagus feeds beneficial bacteria and encourages the production of short-chain fatty acids that heal the gut wall. Restoring the gut's integrity has far-reaching metabolic effects. As inflammation subsides, insulin sensitivity improves, cortisol levels normalize, and the body's internal stress signals quiet down. The immune system no longer wastes energy in constant defense mode, freeing the body to focus on repair and regeneration. This shift is often felt as renewed energy, mental clarity, and easier fat loss, because when inflammation is low, the body can once again burn fuel cleanly and efficiently. A healthy gut equals a calm immune system, and a calm immune system equals a body that no longer needs to hold on to excess fat as a form of protection. In this balanced state, the brain, liver, and hormones communicate properly. Hunger and satiety cues stabilize, and cravings for sugar or processed food diminish naturally. Fat loss becomes not a battle of willpower, but a biological response to restored harmony. Healing begins at the gut because that's where inflammation begins. Every cell, every hormone, and every organ depends on the messages coming from the microbiome. When those messages are clear and anti-inflammatory, the body functions as it should, energized, lean, and resilient. Repairing the gut isn't just a digestive fix, it's the master key to calming inflammation, resetting metabolism, and reclaiming long-term health from the inside out. Reducing inflammation and restoring metabolic balance is not about quick fixes or medication. It's about creating an environment where the body can heal itself. The human body is remarkably resilient, but it needs consistency, rest, and nourishment to do its job properly. Everyday's choices, how you sleep, move, eat, and manage stress, either feed inflammation or calm it. By aligning these daily habits with your body's natural rhythms, you can lower cortisol, stabilize blood sugar, and unlock natural fat burning without deprivation or strain. Sleep is the foundation of recovery and one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory tools available. During deep sleep, the body clears inflammatory molecules, repairs damaged tissues, and restores hormonal balance. When sleep is inadequate, cortisol levels rise, insulin sensitivity drops, and inflammatory cytokines increase. Studies show that even one night of poor sleep can trigger the same inflammatory response seen in illness or injury. Prioritizing 7-9 hours of quality sleep allows the immune system to reset each night. Keeping a consistent bedtime, avoiding screens before sleep, and maintaining a cool, dark room can dramatically improve sleep quality and lower inflammation. Intermittent fasting is another simple yet highly effective strategy for calming inflammation and restoring metabolic health. Periods of fasting allow insulin levels to drop and cells to enter repair mode, a process called autophagy. During autophagy, the body clears out damaged proteins, toxins, and dysfunctional mitochondria, the very elements that drive inflammation and aging. Fasting also reduces oxidative stress and enhances fat oxidation. A 14 to 16-hour fasting window practiced consistently gives the gut time to rest and the metabolism a chance to reset. The goal isn't starvation but metabolic efficiency, teaching the body to burn fat for energy instead of constantly relying on glucose. Sunlight plays an often overlooked role in inflammation control. Natural light exposure, especially in the morning, regulates the body's circadian rhythm and boosts vitamin D synthesis. Vitamin D acts as a hormone that modulates immune function, helping to prevent the overactive inflammatory responses seen in autoimmune and metabolic diseases. Just 15 to 20 minutes of morning sun exposure can improve mood, lower cortisol, and enhance mitochondrial function. Combining sunlight with light movement, such as a morning walk, compounds these benefits by supporting both hormonal and metabolic balance. Movement, too, is one of the most effective natural anti-inflammatory therapies. The key is consistency, not intensity. Regular physical activity, walking, yoga, swimming, or strength training reduces inflammatory markers like CRP and IL-6 while increasing anti-inflammatory myokines released from muscles. Exercise improves circulation, enhances insulin sensitivity, and encourages lymphatic drainage, helping the body clear toxins and inflammatory debris. Over-exercising, on the other hand, can raise cortisol and oxidative stress, so balance is essential. Gentle, frequent movement throughout the day keeps inflammation low and metabolism active without overwhelming the body's stress response. Chronic stress is one of the biggest contributors to persistent inflammation and fat retention. The modern world keeps the body in a constant state of alert, flooding it with cortisol and adrenaline. Over time, this hormonal overload weakens the immune system, promotes insulin resistance, and makes it nearly impossible to burn fat efficiently. Mind-body practices such as deep breathing, meditation, or spending time in nature directly counteract this effect by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and repair mode. Even 5 minutes of slow, conscious breathing can lower cortisol levels and shift the body out of fight or flight. Nutrition remains a cornerstone of this process. Anti-inflammatory eating, rich in omega-3 fats, antioxidants, and plant compounds, supplies the raw materials for repair. Every meal should aim to stabilize blood sugar, reduce oxidative stress, and feed the gut microbiome. Hydration, too, is critical. Water helps transport nutrients, flush toxins, and maintain cellular communication. Herbal teas like ginger, turmeric, and green tea offer additional anti-inflammatory compounds that support detoxification and metabolic function. What ties all of these strategies together is consistency. The body cannot heal overnight. It needs time to rebuild tissues, regulate hormones, and restore microbial diversity. Consistent sleep, real food, regular movement, and emotional calm create the internal environment required for long-term repair. When practiced daily, these habits lower inflammation to such a degree that fat loss becomes effortless and sustainable, the natural outcome of a well-functioning system rather than a forced goal. Dr. Myhill's message remains clear, and empowering inflammation is not a life sentence. It is a reversible state, a signal from the body that something is out of balance. When you address its root causes, poor diet, stress, toxins, and sleep deprivation, the body responds with resilience. Energy returns, the gut heals, hormones rebalance, and fat stores are released because they are no longer needed for protection. Sustainable fat loss and vibrant health are not achieved through restriction, but through restoration. When you give the body rest, nutrient density, and time, it remembers exactly how to heal, and the results reach far beyond the scale, touching every aspect of vitality and longevity.